Almost 2 days have passed since the latest miniset came out, so now we can see what are the best performing decks so far. Spoiler alert, Big Spell Mage is definitely warping the meta around itself. In this video I'm gonna give you 5 of the best decks so far, show you their mulligans, win rates if we have some stats for them, as well as some general tips, so if you're serious about Hearthstone, drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget you can have some Hearthstone coaching. And you can also support me on Metafight groups if you wish. Right now they have a huge contest going on, and if you support me for as low as $3, that would really go a long way, because they're literally giving away free money right now, and last week I actually managed to snag myself an extra $250, which definitely isn't bad. So thank you in advance. Now let's check out the decks.
You are not prepared!
The first deck on the list is actually going to be Pirate Demon Hunter, and it's actually doing amazingly well right now, and I'm assuming it's basically farming all of those big spell mages right now, because the popularity is just through the roof. Here's the variant that's working best so far with huge sample size, like it has above 60% win rate, above 1000 games for the last couple of days. It's actually doing amazing. And this does look to be the literally exact same Pirate Demon Hunter list we've had for a while now. I did show you a detailed guide about something along these lines not too long ago, so you definitely should be checking that one out. The interesting inclusion here would be the Coconut Cannoneer, which gives you a little bit of extra damage, but the rest of it looks pretty standard stuff. It does have a couple of paraglides, and it's not running the South Sea Captain, so you're not going to be suffering from a lack of steam as much, but you're also not going to have an extra basically Hosen, but technically it was a worse kind of Hosen, so there's that. The deck is pretty aggressive, games end pretty quickly, and we have a Rana at the end with which you could cheat out some extra damage, just don't get baited into thinking all of the damage goes face. It gets redirected to a random enemy, so things like acupuncture doesn't mean 8 damage to the face every time. Matchup wise, we do have a little bit of stats. Well, this is the only stats you really need. The popularity for Big Spell Mage is way too high right now, so you will be farming the shit out of those, and that's honestly all you need to know. We could drag it out for the last 30 days as well, so we can see some extra stats, because the meta didn't really shift all that much. But apparently most Shaman decks are not going to be your friend, Hand Buff Pally as well. Death Knights are going to be not very great as well, and Elemental Mage and Secret Hunter and Overkill Priest too. As for the mulligan, we can see, here's what it looks like. You basically try to curve out with the good 1-drops. Hosen is definitely decent, Sigil is great, the weapon ain't too bad, the location even, but try to be curving into it. Sock Puppet I would say is also not horrible, but apparently it's not an amazing turn 1-drop, so I guess the other 1-drops are much better than that. As for on the coin, it's not much different really, literally the same stats, but we can also see Zilliax being a little bit higher here, and he's obviously the +1 -1 module, and the rest is kind of the same deal, weapon not as hot here. For other good Demon Hunter decks so far, it's basically just the Pirate Demon Hunters. There's also a variant without the Rana, but it's doing horribly. So yeah, this is the list I'm showing you, 62% win rate, 1100 games, amazing stats, and there's also a 61 with 1100 as well. So yeah, that's the South Sea Captain variant I showed you a couple of days ago, so you can check the detailed guide about that one too. On the number 2 spot, we also have Pain Warlock, which is also farming Big Spell Mages, so it has that going for it. Again, literally no new cards in this one. So yeah, the mini set so far hasn't been super impactful in terms of new decks or anything like that. It just made one new meta deck, which everybody is trying to target. So far seems like successfully, but the play pattern for Big Spell Mage is definitely way too toxic to remain, so it should be getting nerfed in a week or two as well. Anyway, no real reason for me to go into detail here as well. I have plenty of guides about this deck, plenty of gameplay, coaching videos, so yeah, just give those one a check, and you should be well on your way on climbing with Pain Warlock as well. Matchup wise, yeah, you're gonna be great against Big Spell Mages, Highlander, and Dragon Druid apparently. Again, we can check the last 30 days, because reasons. And Frost Death Knight, I think this is the triple Frost, ain't too great. Flood Pally is also quite questionable against you. And some of the Shammies are a bit 50-50, but usually you should be having no problem climbing. Pain Demon Hunter is actually gonna be countering as well, so that's the deck from the first spot. Makes some sense. As for the mulligan, here's what it looks like going first. I am again gonna go with the last 30 days, obviously, the stats are much more populated, and here, just curve out, like, it's really not rocket science. Try to have a good 1-drop on 1, and by good 1-drop I mean a minion usually. Turn 2 Geode is great, turn 3 definitely love the Rook, but apparently it's not as high on the win rate, cap rate is 50. So yeah, try to be curving into the free drop. Blood Treant is usually a keep, and also same can be said for Imprisoned Horror. Going first, I'm not too sure about the Molten Giant, but if you have a perfect curve already, you could consider it. As for on the coin, the situation isn't much different. Here the Giant and the Imprisoned are much better, because you have an extra card, a coin, so damaging yourself should not be hard, and you're still basically trying to curve out. Also, you're not gonna be a stranger to holding on to things like Infernal, but again, try to be curving into that one. For other good Warlock decks, we also obviously still have Insanity doing quite well. Not as amazing, not as popular, but still quite solid. Yeah, 62% win rate, 2,300 games, definitely amazing. Right now, so make no mistake, Pain Warlock still has it. Obviously, the deck we are all expecting to see on this list is also Big Spell Mage, and yeah, the deck is just way too powerful, way too strong, way too consistent, and above all, way too popular. Like, everybody and their grandmother played this thing on day one. Literally had above 50% popularity after day one of the mini set, and the reason behind it is just a little bit too toxic, a little bit does too much than it should, like turn 4, turn 5 tsunamis. You're definitely no stranger to those, and it's doing it surprisingly consistently too. Like, you're getting yourself a bunch of coins, you're getting yourself a bunch of discounts with the Seashell, and Water Ellies just start flying out of nowhere. It is just way too good. This particular variant is running a couple of Cult Neophytes in the mix, and the main reason is you basically try to counter other Big Spell Mages because they're all over the place. Other than that, everything else looks the same. In this one, you're not running the Instrument deck in here, so you can make room for the Cult Neophyte, and what else is even missing? I can't really see. Oh, it's Khadgar. So yeah, a couple of Cult Neophytes instead of Instrument deck and Khadgar, and that helps you basically cog block the opponent from doing their thing before you do your thing. You can check out again my guide about this deck as well as my gameplay video with it, so you have a better idea how to play it. Matchup wise, here's what we have so far. Surprisingly populated, but not really, because literally everybody played this shit. And yeah, Pirate Demon Hunter is on the negative, so is Pain Warlock, and apparently Elemental Mage is also somewhere out there. Kinda felt like Death Knight had an edge over it, but according to the stats, that ain't the case. So yeah, climbing with this should not be an issue, but be careful, because it should be getting nerfed very soon. As for the mulligan, here's what it looks like. You could definitely check out my guide for a bit more detailed breakdown. But here we can also actually see the stats, and having a turn 1 definitely does help, so hold on to that Miracle Salesman, or at least to the Scarab Keychain, not both. Turn 2, best thing would be a Greedy Partner if you have another 2-drop. Gold Banner is also not the worst, but you kind of want to have that one after your Cephalopods is in play. Cult Neophyte could be a consideration against other mages, I guess, but don't play it on turn 2, obviously. Seashell, I would say, is also quite the good card to hold on to. Like, I have no idea why it's this low. Like, turn 3 Seashell into a turn 4 Cephalopod definitely isn't bad. Water Cooler, I would hold on to only if I'm thinking about doing the King Tide, and also King Tide is great of a keep, so is the Cephalopod, and Skyla as well, but try not to keep all of these. Like, they all have a good purpose, but try to build upon that purpose. Like, if you have Skyla, you want to get yourself a coin, so keeping Greedy Partner and the weapon would be a good idea. If you have Cephalopods, you want to coin it out ASAP, so there's that. The Seashell might help with that. If you have King Tide, you might even hold on to a straight up Tsunami or a Watercolor Artist. So yeah, be smart about it. As for on the coin, the situation is kind of similar. Here I'd say King Tide is not as hot. Like, even if you play this guy on curve, you're not going to be the first one having 5 mana, the opponent is, so it's very tricky. So be careful on that front, but the rest looks kind of the same. For other good mage decks, we have tons of iterations of Big Spell Mage. Elemental Mage is also up there. Basically still a free deck with 57% win rate, pretty hot stuff. And yeah, tons and tons of Big Spell Mages as well. On the number 4 spot, it's another deck that counters Big Spell Mage basically, and I did try this deck as well. It was pretty fun playing against mages with it, because not only do you clear their tsunamis and whatnot, but you also leave yourself with a threat on the board, as well as heal back to full kind of deal. So the deck definitely has what it takes to stand its ground against mages. Again, I gave you a guide about this deck with some gameplay yesterday, so go ahead and give that one a check. It's the exact same deck. It is doing beautifully right now. The main thing that this deck has going for it is the Cliff Dive, and with it you get some Kalagarn, Walking Mountain, Yaxaron, or Galganeth as your high rolls. You get a couple of those on the board. They have Rush, which doesn't really do anything for those. But if you get low rolled with a Razzle Dazzler like that, or a Hagatha, or a Carefree Cookie, you could rush him into something. Pretty strong deck. Not gonna really go into detail, just check out the guide about it. Let's just go ahead and check out the matchups, and yeah, Big Spell Mage is gonna be your bitch. We don't have too much stats for the last 30 days either. There was a similar variant, I guess this one, which we can give a check to, and here the matchups are for the last 30 days. We can see that Dragon Druids and Highlander was not so hot for you, and same can be said for Warriors, but all around climbing is definitely gonna be great for you. As for the mulligan, here's what it shows again. Going first, holding on to Carefree Cookie is not going to be a bad idea, so that you actually don't get it out of your Cliff Dive. Wouldn't really hold on to Malted Magma. Let's go with the Kept Trade instead. Fairy Tale is decent. Sigil of Skydiving ain't too bad. Hagatha is also pretty decent. The location is okay, I guess. Not that hot, honestly, but people do like to keep it. Pop-Up Book could be a good consideration. Depending on the matchup, Magma could be a keep. Like, let's say if you're against the Warlock. Carefree Cookie, Turn the Tide, technically is going to be removal for you. The rest probably not so good. And for the coin, it's kind of the same stuff, so yeah, mulligan accordingly. For other good Shaman decks, this is the one I showed you. Not the biggest sample size, but we also have here this one with a lot bigger sample size. So it's definitely pretty good. We also have a Rainbow Shaman. No, that's the same thing again. Here's an Evolve Shaman doing quite well, actually. There's also Pirate Shamans out there, but that's about it for now. Some people are experimenting with Highlander Shamans, but so far they don't seem to be that amazing. And lastly, we still have Handbuff Pally doing nice and good. Literally no new inclusions here. Shocking, I know. It's the same old list. It has Yogg in here, Amidus as well. Plenty of legendaries, not gonna lie. But the deck is pretty simple to pilot, and yeah, climbing again shouldn't be too hard for you. Matchup wise, here's what we have, and apparently it holds its own against Big Spell Mages. For the last 30 days, we can also see it's doing fine against most other things. Flood Pally is gonna be a problem. Pirate Shaman, Evolve Shaman, and Zarimi Priest could also be tough, but not impossible. As for the mulligan, here's what it looks like. Just try to curve out decently well. Drone on 1 is great, Banner on 2 is huge. Grim Street is okay. I'm not a big fan going first to hold on to that. Depending on the matchup, Tigris can be good. Getting yourself a weapon on 4 is also pretty good. Instrument Tech on 2 is also not horrible. And Musclotron is also fine. If you have a decent curve, Magata can also be a keep. As for on the coin, it's kind of the same thing. Here I would also say things like Therum could be a consideration if you have a good curve. And yeah, it's really not rocket science. These are the stats, so do with them as you wish. For other good Pallies, Flood Pally is also doing fine. I do believe we did see some potential support cards for it, but so far they're not making their way into it. Tourist Pally is also doing decent still apparently, and that's about it for the Pally class. For the classes we haven't mentioned, starting off with Death Knight, we can see Corpsekull Death Knight is at the top with not that big a sample size nor that big a win rate. Razzle Deck is also fine. There's also this Rainbow Death Knight. Yeah, basically the old stuff is still doing fine. We're not really seeing any of the new cards making their way into new lists. So it's probably gonna take a little bit more time now, isn't it? With Druids, Highlander Dragon Druid seems to be the best so far. Dragon Druid is fine. This is actually a Tsunami Dragon Druid, so that's kind of interesting. The old Dragon Druid is also up there with the Doomkins. And so far, it's basically iterations of these. With Hunters, Secret Hunter seems to be doing fine. It's also doing well against Big Spell Mages, supposedly. Highlander Hunter is also actually doing great against those. I didn't really have that much success, if I gotta be honest, but the stats are showing it's decent. And Spell Token is somewhat creeping its way back in, but not really. With Priest, Zarimi Priest seems to be the best bet so far. Overkill Priest is still out there. Still not an easy deck to pilot well, but apparently it has what it takes to still persevere. Rogues are still looking kind of questionable. This is a weird mech rogue that's actually doing quite well. Not sure why. That's not a mech rogue, that's some kind of weapon rogue. What the hell is this even? Who plays this? Well, no streamers are playing this, so I guess it's kind of a mystery deck so far. And lastly, we can also see Warrior doing absolute dog shit. To no one's surprise, because the deck really didn't get absolutely any support from the mini set. So that's gonna be it for this top 5, guys. Hope this helps you figure out what you want to be playing until we see the next nerfs. Hope the video helped you, and if it did, a like and subscribe would really be awesome, and don't forget you can have some Hearthstone coaching and support me on MetaFi groups. Thanks for watching. I'm Kris, and I'll see you in my next video or stream.